This is starting our third class on predestination. And so we've been able to cover up rules we need to remember and terms we need to know. And so we've started off now with God's sovereignty. We're going to continue there where we left off 2 weeks ago. And so if you have your handout, we've already covered God, and God is sovereign over all the land. And we spent quite a bit of time on that a couple weeks ago. But here's some videos that we had talked about, or some different things of God's mighty hand, His work on creation, and He's sovereign over all the land. And so we talked about a fire tornado. So here's a fire tornado that happened in Brazil, just so you can see it live, or as it's recorded.
They just had that fire tornado just out west that was on.
Oh, great. Yes, magnificent. So I have here a video of the Japan's tsunami coming in. Yes?
They want handouts. We need handouts.
If someone could make copies. And then here's sinkholes.
Oh, we don't have any of those.
And then here is the meteorite coming in Russia. And so just how God's mighty hand on the earth and just these magnificent things that He uses is just this awesome power that He has, and earth opening up wherever fire tornadoes happening, and one moment you have a nice livelihood, the next thing it's all wiped away just by the power of water or something falling from the sky, and just how God's in control of all of creation. Just this magnificent videos that we have now that we can pull and watch over and over again. There was interesting, these cars coming up as they see the flood waters coming in. And this guy, look at this guy here. I mean, he's just getting, yes. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Is that the tsunami?
Yeah, this is Japan tsunami. It's taken from a closed caption camera, like a traffic camera, coming in. And you watch this, there's a ship that comes through, a couple minutes later, just God's awesome power. And so we talked about that last week with and applied verses to God's sovereignty over the land. And so just wanted to show you some of those videos. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Weather Channel has the strangest weather. Every Sunday at 9, it's a pretty fascinating show, and so they show these they call it strange, but you just see God's hand in these things. I was watching it last night, they had a replay of one of the shows, and so if you can believe this, in Australia, it rained fish. So they had a segment on fish raining from the sky. These people in outback Australia, this village or whatever, came up and just started taking the fish and cooked to eat it. And so, we got the biblical stories of God providing food for Elijah, or, that sort of thing. And here He's providing fish. Now, the strangest thing is there is not a lake with fish, or a lake at all, within 200 miles of this village. And so, it's pretty fascinating. So they had some scientists on there to try to explain, well, how does fish fall from the sky? And so the scientific explanation is probably there was a water spout within a lake that was 200 miles away, the closest lake that had fish. And so this water spout, they don't know if it existed or not, but a water spout sucked up the fish and then hurled it through the atmosphere, and 200 miles away it's raining fish. And so if you don't believe God has power over all things, think about that. Think about that. All right, but anyway, this is pretty fascinating, where they just show the strangest things, and it just shows God's mighty power. Yesterday they showed where, when the sun comes in, and maybe there's ice crystals in the atmosphere, and so it will reflect the sun and create different images of the sun, where it looks like it's a pillar, or it looks like there's multiple suns, as it reflects through these ice crystals. And so the scientists on there are saying, well, don't think this is the end times or anything. That has nothing to do with that. It's just ice crystals. So they're trying to take it away from God's mighty hand and what He's trying to show you. and say, it's just the ice crystal sky. But of course, God's using all these tools just to get our attention, and there's been a lot of strange weather over the past year, this year, and so they're focusing on that. So anyway, if you want to take advantage of that and just see God's sovereignty over the land, it's pretty fascinating. And we see these Bible stories and think, well, God did that back then. He's doing it now. I mean, raining fish from the sky, allowing probably some village to eat fish they can't even get to, and it's 200 miles away, and God's providing for it. It's pretty fascinating.
There's
Yes.
a website that I go to, and it shows like a time-lapse camera of like the night sky and how the northern lights and many stars.
Yes.
It's really
Very fascinating. Just God's creation is just fascinating. You just look out and just see God's handiwork and His glory and majesty. It's just awesome. We talked about God choosing Abraham. God has sovereignty, and He chose Abraham, and God gave a promise to Abraham. God, great promise that all the world will be blessed through him, and so we talked about that how God chose him. And then now we're going on to number C, point C. God chose Israel. God chose Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 14 through 15. Behold, the heaven and the heavens of heavens is the Lord thy God, the earth also, with all that therein is. Only the Lord had a delight in thy fathers to love them, and He chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. We talked about Israel, and Israel's God's chosen nation. God chose a nation that He would love, particularly that He would choose as His people. And God chose Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6 through 9. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto Himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set His love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you, and because He would keep the oath which He had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of a house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. Know therefore the Lord thy God, He is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love Him, and keep His commandments to 1,000 generations. We find here that God did not choose Israel because they were a strong, mighty people. Sometimes we choose a sports team because, they're the ones that are winning, so we're going to follow a winning team. Well, God didn't choose Israel because they were a winning team, or strong and mighty, or the biggest and the best. No, He didn't choose them because of that. He says here He chose them because they were the fewest. Not because He chose them because they were the fewest, but He didn't choose them because they were the best. He chose them because He chose to love them. He chose them unconditionally. There was no conditions on the one He chose. He chose Israel for Himself. He didn't have any qualifications on His choice. He only chose to love them. What covenant did God keep as He chose Israel? What covenant did God keep as He chose Israel? Where we talked about Abraham, and Israel comes from Abraham. The nation Israel is an offspring of Abraham, right? So Genesis chapter 12, 1 through 3. And the Lord said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Because of Israel, the Savior of the world came to us. The Savior of the world came through one nation, through one people, and that was God's chosen people, Israel. And so that's how He blessed us. God chose Israel to be that conduit for Christ to come to us. And so He chose them. Now, however, God's reason for choosing the nation of Israel was not solely for the purpose of producing the Messiah. That's kind of interesting, right? We thought, maybe that's the only reason why God chose Israel. But in Exodus chapter 19, we find out He had also another purpose. God's desire for Israel was that they would go and teach others about Him. Israel was to be a nation of priests, prophets, and missionaries to the world. God's intent was for Israel to be a distinct people, a nation who pointed out others towards God and His promised provision of a Redeemer, Messiah, and Savior. How did that work out? Didn't, right? they pretty much failed. For the most part, Israel failed in this task. Exodus chapter 19, verse 5 and 6. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. You are going to be a nation of priests. And so here, this is before the Levites were chosen in particular as the priestly line. And the reason why the Levites were chosen, if you were in our class in Exodus, you know they messed up. When the golden calf was made, and Moses came down and said, anybody who wants to be on the Lord's side, cross this line. Well, the Levites are the only ones who did. They weren't participants in the golden calf exercise. So that's why the Levites became the priestly line versus the entire nation. But originally, the entire nation was supposed to be the priestly line to broadcast it to the whole world about the Savior coming, about the Messiah coming. And now they're not broadcasting that the Messiah has come. They're still looking. They're still looking for the Messiah. Questions on that? Questions on God choosing Israel? More comments? All right, next. God chose the disciples. God chose the disciples. We're on God's sovereignty and how he chooses and picks whom he will. God chose the disciples, didn't he? Mark chapter 1, verse 17 and 18. And Jesus said unto them, Come ye after me, and I will make you to become fishers of men. And straightway they forsook their nets and followed him. Do we have that same commission to us? Be fishers of men? Of course we do. But here he's specifically choosing the 12. Mark chapter 1, verse 20. And straightway he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the ship with the hired servants and went after him. Here we have verses, the Gospels explain particular instances when he went out and picked this one disciple and that disciple. So here he went to the ship and called them that were their father was Zebedee. And so which disciples did he call here in this verse? James and John. They were the sons of Zebedee. They're also known as the sons of thunder. So they were pretty sparky people, right? They were pretty outgoing and just full of energy, wanted to get things done. God had to get that under control. Mark chapter 2, verse 14. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the receipt of custom, and said unto him, Follow me. And he arose and followed him. What do we know this disciple as? Matthew. This is Matthew. And so here's Matthew just doing his collecting the taxes and doing the accounting work, and Jesus comes by and follow me. He got up and followed him. God chose Matthew to be part of the 12. Luke chapter 6, verse 13 through 16. And when it was day, he called unto his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom also he named apostles. At this time, there was hundreds of followers. And now he specifically chose these 12 to be pulled out of the rest, to be specifically his disciples. Verse 14, Simon, whom he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, which also was the traitor. So we have the names of the 12 that he chose. Acts chapter 10, verse 40 through 42. Him God raised up on the third day and showed him openly, not to all the people, but unto witnesses chosen before of God, even to us, who did eat and drink with him after he arose from the dead. And he commanded us to preach unto the people and to testify that it is he which was ordained of God to be the judge of the quick and dead. So God chose who he was going to show himself to after he rose from the dead. There's hundreds. We know there's hundreds of people he showed himself to. And here this verse specifically also points out, and to also the ones who sat and ate and drank with him. So specifically, the remainder of the 11 he showed himself to specifically, as well as several other hundreds. So God chose the disciples. God chose the disciples. God's sovereign over who he chooses for what purpose, isn't he? Questions? All right, go ahead.
God is sovereign. He chose Judas Iscariot.
Yes.
Knowing that Judas was going to betray him.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
But some people think that Jesus put his trust in Judas. I've heard a lot of pastors say that. That's not accurate.
Jesus put his trust
That's how Judas was able to betray him, because Christ was really trusted.
Oh, he had a purpose for Judas. He had a purpose for Judas. He had a purpose for all the 12. Had a purpose for all the 12. Yeah, it's a definitely difficult question to grasp, and we're going to be dealing with that throughout this whole series. How does God choose, or what does He choose you for, or what? All right, next, point number E, God chose the Gentiles. God chose the Gentiles. Oh, finally, we're getting included, don't we? I don't know about you. Some of us, or myself, gets a little jealous of Jewish people because God's chosen people, right? But here God chose us as well. God chose the Gentiles. Genesis chapter 22, verse 18, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed because thou hast obeyed my voice. God chose to bless all nations. Hosea chapter 2, verse 23, and I will sow her unto him in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. And I will say to them which were not my people, thou art my people. Isn't that pretty awesome? That's very awesome. I will say to them which were not my people, thou art my people. And they shall say, thou art my God. We can say, this is my God. I am chosen. I wasn't originally a part of his chosen nation, but I am his people. He is chosen. Thou art my people. And they shall say, thou art my God. So God chose the Gentiles to be his people as well. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 and 10. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of God, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. It's pretty awesome. You can find a verse in the New Testament and find a corresponding verse in the Old Testament, and they're saying the exact same thing, right? Hosea chapter 2, verse 23. Now 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 and 10. They mirror each other, right? It's pretty awesome. And so we are now his people. We're his people. He's chosen us.
Peter,
Yes?
where did you get that map? That is totally awesome.
It is cool.
Normal internet searches for something awesome.
If I Google awesome map done by Peter.
Right. Map of the world with flags or nations of the world or something. Point number G, let's see, F. God chose Paul. God chose Paul. Now, incredible story, isn't it, about Paul? I mean, this guy, he's a murderer of the Jews, right? He's on his way to Damascus to increase his realm to get Christians, well, not murder Jews, murder Christians, around the world. He's expanding his role and his vision for around Jerusalem, and now going to Damascus to make it far-reaching, isn't he? On his way to do this, God brings him down to his knees. Awesome. Acts chapter 9, verse 11 through 16. And the Lord said unto him, arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth, and hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in, and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man how much evil he hath done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. Ananias, what do you think he's thinking at this moment? You're going to have Paul do what? He's on his way, as he's pointing, Ananias is telling God, he's on his way to bind all the Christians and put them in jail or to kill them, make them martyrs, whatever. And you're going to have him tell the world about you? Whoa, incredible. You got to wonder what saints, what Christians were praying for Paul at this time. Lord, Paul is coming to do some evil things. Lord, we need you to intervene. You got to wonder who's back there praying. Because there's no influence from mankind, no influence from the Christians. They're saying, Paul, you need to change. You need to see the light. You need to see that Jesus died for your sins or else you're going to hell. He's on his way marching down to Damascus to kill them all, right? And God intervenes. Just great. So you got to wonder who's out back there praying and who's rejoicing that, wow, you've answered my prayer far and above I could ever imagine. And you're going to use this man Paul. Well, Paul was chosen for a specific purpose, right? He wrote most of the New Testament. God chose him for a mighty, mighty purpose. Point number G. God chooses leaders. I think Pastor Allen has pretty much taken up my Sunday school class and referred to this, but God chooses leaders. God chose Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Exodus chapter 3, verse 10 through 12. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. God chose Moses. Was Moses really willing to go do this? No. He has hesitated. You're choosing me? I'm just now a shepherd, and I'm wanted for murder. And you want? I can't even talk. You're going to choose me? God chose Moses to lead the people out of Egypt. God chose David to be king of Israel. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 11 through 13. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Are here all thy children? And he said, There remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Send and fetch him, for he will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look at and look to. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David. From the day forward, Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. God chose David to be king of Israel. Now, did David become king of Israel right at that present second? No, he had to be patient and wait until God removed Saul from his position. And then God put David in his place. But God had anointed David as the next king of Israel there. So God chose David. So I picked those two out as pretty big leaders, leaders through the Bible. But in general, as Pastor Allen mentioned, God chooses all leaders. God chooses all leaders, and here's the verses to back that up. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 15 through 16. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. You know, here it says, by me they do this, right? Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. You got to believe that, don't you? You got to.
Or bad.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
One more verse from where you were reading.
Go ahead.
Earlier, on the 14th verse. And he's talking about David. He's anointed there.
Yes.
Saying, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him.
Yes.
So there's the Lord's sovereignty again.
That's right.
You know?
Removing. Yeah. That's right. You put it in place and it will take down, right? We've been studying in Daniel. Daniel chapter 2, verse 20 through 21. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He sets up and takes down. Daniel chapter 5, verse 21. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointeth over it whomsoever he will. Nebuchadnezzar was brought to his knees, right? He was eating grass. You realize, as Pastor Allen mentioned, he's not the lion of the kingdom. God's the lion of the kingdom. God's the lion of the earth. And he will set up and take down whomsoever he will. Romans chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, For there is no power but of God. The powers that are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. God's in charge. God sets up the leaders. God sets up the laws, doesn't he? God sets up the laws. I had heard a sermon about. Go ahead.
Oh, one more verse on Daniel 4:17 when it says that God sets up over the kingdoms the basest of men. And sometimes people are a little discouraged when they see the world leaders and find out that they do some pretty terrible things.
Yes.
That's been the course of humanity throughout.
Yes.
And I heard it said a man must be a little bit crazy to want to rule the world anyway.
Yes. That's right. That's right. No, thank you. But I heard a quick sermon about our laws, and that some domestic abuse, right? Sometimes the spouse don't want to get involved with the law. Well, God put the law in place, and you circumvent that law and says, "Oh, I don't need to be a part of that. I don't want to get my spouse in trouble. I don't want to, he'll change, that sort of thing." Well, God put those laws in place, and now you're circumventing the laws that God put in place. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting perspective. Yes?
This is a rabbit trail and we cannot go there. But there is a small but very adamant group of people who believe that the American Revolution, according to this scripture, should have never happened. Because that we were not subjecting ourselves to the higher powers. And it's interesting to research it and look at it.
Yeah. No, from my understanding of American history, the Revolutionary, they did not want to remove themselves, but they had sent letters to the king, and the king ignored their requests, and so then they had no other alternative. But yeah, very fascinating. Yeah, and this is what our whole session is about: God's sovereignty versus how much are we involved, versus how much is God truly in charge of all things. And we're going to get down to that, to the salvation level, the base of it all. We're not going to solve it, but that's a part of this class. So whether you like or dislike your president, governor, or mayor, or police officer, local sheriff, whatever, God put them there. God's hand is on them and directing them. I've had the opportunity to read some biographies on some of our past presidents, like John Adams, the voice of America, the voice of the American Revolution. Where Thomas Jefferson's the hand and George Washington's the sword, and just John Adams doesn't get the praise and the admonition that I think he should get. It was a very fascinating man, very fascinating man. I just finished a biography on George Bush, and he prayed and read his Bible every morning. I've respected George Bush, but I respect him more now that I know all about this and putting everything in perspective. It's pretty fascinating, pretty fascinating biography. A type of and one part of the way that God used to lead him through to salvation. Well, his parents had Billy Graham over for dinner, and George, I think the way it is his father asked the question, do you have to have a born-again experience in order to go to heaven? And that's kind of triggered the path. Billy Graham kind of answered, and it seemed like a very kind of weak way. I think he was trying to be, not ruffle too many feathers, but he went alongside George W. Bush, the next day and walked with him in the yard, this is at Camp David. Walked with him and talked to him privately about Christ. And so Billy Graham was able to have a one-on-one conversation with George Bush. And so that led, I don't know if he accepted Christ at that moment, but at least got him on the right track. But pretty fascinating. But as far as putting up leaders, Harry S. Truman, truly a fascinating man. He's a Baptist, and he got involved in politics, and kind of more on the local level, and kind of got moved up, and he had no desire to be president. Franklin Roosevelt, FDR was going for his fourth term in the election, And so they were looking for a vice president. And so they were looking across the board to see who would not ruffle feathers one way or the other, right? And Harry S. Truman is the name that came up as the guy that would not, he was not somebody who would offend this side and not somebody who would offend that side. He was just kind of down the middle of the road, not somebody who was out there preaching for himself or whatever. And so Harry S. Truman, they went to the Democratic National Convention. He was promoting, his fellow others who wanted to become leaders. No thought on itself. He was called into a room. Roosevelt calls. I think he was in California and says, I want you to be the next vice president of the United States. He had no choice. And he says, you got to do it for the good of the nation, right? Harry S. Truman only met with FDR twice before FDR died. Right? He had no idea how World War II was being handled. He was a senator, so he had some ideas of what's going on, but as far as really was happening, and a week within his presidency, here comes the scientist coming with, we have an atomic bomb. You have what? And he's having to make a choice on how to use it. Just purely fascinating. And through this biography, he's wondering, why am I here? I don't want to be here. And if you want to know more about Harry S. Truman, God had him there at the right time for the right place. His knowledge and wisdom on how to handle things was just truly, truly amazing. And he did not want to be there. But just how God's put people in place of leadership for the right time, for the right reason, is truly, truly remarkable. So that's some of the reading I've done. All right, 8. God knows and directs your ways. God knows and directs your way. Psalm chapter 139, verse 1 through 16. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my downsitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Okay, he's sovereign. He knows everything about you, doesn't he? Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain. I don't understand, God. I don't understand your sovereignty. You know everything about me. When I sit down, when I get up, what I eat, what I'm saying. I had a coworker, somebody asked you, what's the name of that person? And as soon as they say that, you forget what that person's name is. So this coworker said, it's on the tip of my tongue, you can see it. God knows what's on the tip of your tongue. Verse 7, whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, thou art there. If I make the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from me, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. We have Andrew. And he has a cousin the same age, Audrey. We go play hide and go seek. As soon as you say we're going to play hide and go seek, both of them instantly goes like this. They're standing next to each other. God still sees you. We like it when they play hide and go seek like that. Verse 13, for thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. God knows you in the womb. George Bush, in his biography, talked a lot about dealing with stem cell research and how he handled that, or what his thought process was through that, and how God knows you. God, even in the stem cells, there's life there. And he, when he signed whatever bill he was signing, he had what was referred to as snowflakes. These are babies that came from these stem cells that are now living. And so just stuff that he dealt with. God knows you in your womb. Verse 14, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Can somebody who's impaired, or I've heard of people who have been born without arms and legs, and can they say that? I am fearfully and wonderfully made? Yes, absolutely. Thou knowest my soul right well. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. Before I was formed, God knew me. That's how sovereign he is. And here we're going from the broad, the creation, he controls the weather and such, to choosing the Israel. We're getting down to you. Now, just to make sure things are in perspective, man still is responsible for his part. Man is encouraged to plan and make right decisions that please the Lord. Your planning and his direction go hand in hand, doesn't it? Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9, a man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. Up to recently, I thought this was a verse countering man's heart. But really, this verse is promoting, you should plan. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. It's a positive verse, and up to recently, I thought it was more of a negative verse. But it's a positive, plan your way, but God directs his steps. We had DOT sometimes has interns come in. And so this summer, we had a summer intern from Ohio State University named Elizabeth. And she was, I was working with her, and she was telling me how she's not quite sure what course, where her life will go, as far as what discipline of engineering she should choose, and what kind of job she wants to pursue after. And so I referred to this verse. Plan your way, but ultimately God's going to direct your path. Ultimately God's going to direct it. But you take action on what you want to do the most, and God will put you where you're going to need to be. And so hopefully that was encouragement to her. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 23 and 24. O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. O Lord, correct me, but with judgment, not in thine anger, lest thou bring me to nothing. Psalms 37, verses 23 and 24. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. When we choose our way, it's best to kind of follow his will, isn't it? It makes things a little easier. Do you believe he has our best interest in mind? Do you believe he has our best interest in mind? Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. The NIV version translates the verse a little differently. Seems to be a little clearer. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. God has your best interests in mind. It may not be the path that you think you should be on, but he has your best interests in mind. So how about a little deeper? Did you have a choice on who your parents were going to be? No, of course not. How about where you were born? No. How about genetic health issues you may be suffering? No choice in that. You didn't have a choice in that, did you? None of those were our choices. God is sovereign over all of us. Whether we think so or not, he's sovereign. He knows everything about us. Well, we're going to need to stop there. And we'll continue on next week with God's sovereignty. Hopefully this is an encouragement to you. But this needs to be, we need to go through just to set up the base to kind of look at predestination, because God is sovereign, but how sovereign is he? Questions? Concerns? Yes?
I need to make an announcement when I started. I wasn't in here, but I don't want to say